Good evening, this is N7GES, and this is the NCARC Tech Net. We're here every week at this time to discuss amateur radio issues, especially technical in nature, although not always. We welcome your questions and your input to the net. You can join us via the 447.275 repeater, the 447.75 repeater, and via Echolink. Our nets are streamed to YouTube, and usually we can probably also accept comments to the YouTube channel as well, and try to answer those if we have somebody available to catch those comments and relay them in. I usually start out with check-ins just to see who's around. So who's listening in here this evening?
Good evening, Kevin. This is Kilo Zero Delta Bravo Echo, Debbie in Fort Collins.
This is November 0, November, Yankee, Bart in Evans. Good evening.
This is November 0, Echo Mike Papa, Greg, Fort Collins.
This Kilo Echo 0, Lima Charlie Kilo, KE0LCK, the other Mike from Windsor.
This is K7IRC, Bill in Highlands Ranch.
This is
Zero Tango Yankee Uniform, Joe in Loveland.
This is Kilo 0 Echo Foxtrot Papa, Ryan, currently in Loveland.
This is Kilo 0 Lima Alpha Oscar, Luann, with Kilo 0 Papa Romeo Bravo, Phil in Loveland.
W0 USC, John in Livermore.
Okay, wow. A bunch here. W0 USC, K0RP, PRB, K0LAO, K0EFP, K0TYU, that's not right, KD0TYU, K7IRC, KE0LCK, N0EMP, N0NYY, and K0DBE. There was one double in that bunch that I did not get. Anybody else? And the double, please come again.
Kilo Alpha 6, Echo Tango Echo, Jim in Loveland.
Good evening, Kevin in the net. This is Whiskey 0 Delta Delta Zulu, Dave in Greeley.
Kilo Delta 0, Yankee Oscar Papa, Scott in Fort Collins.
Kilo Romeo 1 Sierra Tango Whiskey. Christy Mobile driving in Windsor.
Kilo Echo 0, Quebec, Charlie Romeo, Robert, Mobile, North Glen.
Okay. Wow. And I think we still had a couple of doubles, perhaps. Here's what I have. KE0QCR. Did I get that right? And what was the name again? You gave it to me and I missed it.
N7GS, this is Kilo Echo 0, Quebec, Charlie Romeo. It's Robert, Mobile, in North Glen.
Okay, Robert, thank you. I was correcting other calls and stuff and just didn't retain it all. Thank you. KR1STW, KD0YOP, W0DDZ, KA6ETE, Jim, W0USC, K0PRB. Now we're into the ones we already did. Okay. Very good. Anybody else?
KE0, Echo Lima Kilo, Tom, Loveland.
Whiskey 0, Alpha Sierra Papa, Terry, Portable in Eaton.
Okay, I got Terry, K0ASP. That's W0ASP. Wow, I'm really hitting 1,000 today. The, Tom, KA0LEK, is that correct?
KE0ELK.
I was afraid I may have messed that up. ELK, KA0ELK, welcome. Anybody else?
Kilo 9er Bravo Golf Uniform, Taryn, Loveland.
Okay, K9BGU, good evening, Taryn. I hadn't talked to you in a while. You got just a little bit of a popping on your signal. I don't know if you're using a microphone extension cable or something else going on there, and it's not much, but it's just enough you might want to look at it, just in case there. But thank you for checking in. Anybody else? All right. Well, that's a huge list to begin with, so we'll take it and go. Our topic tonight is not exactly a technical one, but it is an important amateur radio topic. What is ARES? What does it do? What's it involve? What do I need to do to be involved in it? All of these questions that we hope to answer tonight. Just right off the bat, let me remind you, we do have an ARES net weekly, Thursday evenings, on this frequency at 7 p.m. That's another place to learn more about it. It's also a place to practice your skills with a net. So you're always welcome to check in, even if you're not an ARES member. So, are any of our ARES members on the air that would like to sort of begin and give us an overview of ARES?
DDZ.
This is KDZ-TYU. That was last week's topic.
Yeah, sorry, Kevin. I was trying to get to you. Tonight's topic is the radio hotspots.
Oh, mercy. Yes, thank you. And I wrote it up myself and still don't have it straight. Thank you all. My life has been a little crazy lately, and you're witnessing it by all the disorganization. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, so let's start over. Topic tonight, radio hotspots. What are they? These are a fairly new thing to amateur radio. Any of you who have been dealing with D-Star and DMR have already probably been dealing with them, but many of us have not. So would anybody like to start that out tonight and give us an overview of what they are first, and then we can get into more specifics. Well, I guess I will have to start, and hopefully we inspire some other folks come along and join in. I do not know much about them. I don't even own one. I've never used one. But as I understand it, a hotspot is an internet device that may also be a radio or not, but can communicate to other radio systems via the internet. So somebody may have a D-Star repeater, which is internet capable, and you can connect through the internet with your hotspot to that other repeater and talk on it. It may be miles and miles away. The hotspots that have radio transmitters, and maybe they all do, this is an area I hope to get clarified. You can talk to your hotspot via your HT or mobile radio. The hotspot will be a low-powered radio transmitter of some sort that you can talk to, and then your signal goes through the internet and communicates to the distant repeater. This can be D-Star, DMR, I think Fusion now. I think there are hotspots for that as well. So it's another way to link yourself to other repeaters in distant areas that you might not be able to reach via RF, at least in those bands. Would anybody like to expand on that or make any corrections? Greece, this is liable to be a short net tonight. I'm sorry about that. What's the reason for using this? What's the reason for using a hotspot? Let me tell about what I would expect, and then again, if we have other folks that enter in here, we can get some more information. Obviously, if you want to use a VHF or UHF radio, you are limited by distance. The repeater can be on a high location. You may be able to reach it for a certain amount of distance with a good antenna, but there's a limit there. However, through the internet, using the various modes available to us through digital communications, and specifically digital modes like DMR and D-Star and Fusion. We aren't talking tonight about Echolink and IRLP. We'll save that for another time. But using digital modes, you may be able to connect to a very distant machine. And using a hotspot, you can do that with your own radio by transmitting to this local device you might call like a crossband repeater, which will relay your signal into the internet and relay signals from the internet back to you and your local radio. All right, again, another pause for additional information. Any questions I may be able to answer about that?
You doubled with somebody, Kevin, W0DDZ.
Okay, I had a double. I only got one. DDZ, go ahead.
I was saying you doubled with somebody. There was somebody under you.
Okay, terrific. I missed whoever it was. I do not know who was heard. Who was the other station? Come again.
Late check-in.
Go ahead. Late check-in.
AE0BQ Alpha Echo 0 Bravo Quebec. Daryl in Longmont.
Okay, Daryl, thank you very much. Did I double more than that with anybody? Dave, did most of my transmission come through except for the beginning?
Oh, you definitely won, Kevin.
Very good. Let me thank you for that. We had a double with you, Dave. Did we have a question about hotspots, digital hotspots? All I got was a microphone click, but no audio. Try again. Okay, once again, any questions about what I've already covered?
BQ.
BQ, go ahead. BQ.
Yeah, I'm a little late to the party here, but I understand you just covered the basic idea, and I did hear that about 10 minutes ago. So my question is, got a fan problem on my transceiver. So my question was, of the three modes, or three digital voice systems, so we have the Yaesu, the DMR, and D-Star, which ones are the most popular right now?
Okay. Very good question, and I think there may be some debate over that. Some will say, I think, D-Star, and some will say DMR. And I think it sort of depends on the area of the country you're in, maybe. I do not know if Fusion has been as widely accepted, but I could be wrong on that. So we'll see if anybody else has anything else to say about that. I think all of these are proprietary to some degree, and until recently, there haven't been any actual radios that would cover multiple digital modes. We're, I think, have one in process. Maybe, I don't know if it's actually out that will do that. But these, some of these models of hotspots have been able to do that for a while now. So that also is another advantage to the hotspot, is a way of interacting with more of the digital modes with one piece of equipment. That's a long way around your answer. Anybody else have a thought about popular mode?
BYU.
BYU, go.
I'm going to have to ask W0DDZ. I heard a program today when on my walk. It's on the podcast. It's Ham 360. And they were actually talking about this type of thing, and the guy was actually into DMR. And something that I wasn't aware of, that DMR is open source. I was under the understanding that it wasn't. Dave, am I right or wrong? Was he right or wrong on that?
USC.
We had a Dave, I don't think that was you. Was there somebody else in there? And can I get your call and then we'll wait for Dave first?
W0 USC.
USC. Let me see if Dave is here to give us what he knows, and then I'll come back to you, John, if that's all right. DDZ, did you get the question?
Yeah, I sure did. What I see, there's an open DMR project. I'm not sure of the how far along that project is, but it does look like it's somebody's working on open sourcing it. Hopefully, USC may have some more information for us. W0DDZ.
Well, what I actually heard, and I guess I don't know if this is true or not, but it was on this podcast, is that of course we all know that D-Star and or / ICOM is is definitely theirs. But they said that there was a group by the name of Poppers, and I'm not really sure what that means, in California that actually had opened that up. And hadn't really done much research on it. I just heard it this morning. That's why it kind of surprised me when they said it was open source.
Okay. Let's go to USC and find out if he's got something additional here.
Yeah, thanks everyone. My understanding is DMR is open source. It was first implemented by Motorola with the Moto Turbo network. But I've got a couple things to explain first before I can go on further, otherwise it'll get confusing. Okay, so on the hotspots that we're talking about, basically what they do, Kevin is right, they basically give you an interface into the digital network through the internet, and you're basically connecting to a server, either a D-Star server, a Fusion server, or a DMR server. Break. Okay. The only proprietary format right now is Yaesu. The other ones are open source, but they've only been implemented by the companies that we're aware of. So right now under DMR, there's two networks that you can connect to that are available. There's DMR Mark, which is the Motorola network, or what they implemented using the C-Bridge technology. And then there's Brandmeister. And the Brandmeister is a whole nother server. You've got to connect your hotspot to that or a repeater to that. But it really opens up flexibility because you can talk to any talk group or any session from anywhere, with just an internet connection, HT. Back to net.
Okay. Thank you, John. Was wanting to refer back to the beginning part of your question, or your comment, that DMR is open source. Am I right that it wasn't originally open source, but it was Motorola proprietary, and then we have a variation of it now that is open source?
This is W0USC. My understanding is it is open source, but Motorola has an implementation of that with proprietary functions and technology.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so back to Joe's comment. Does anybody have any familiarity with what he called Popper program? And maybe this was already covered, and maybe we're on a sideline here. Does anybody have any info about that? Okay.
TYU with an explanation.
Go ahead, TYU.
My feelings, and again, I listened to this thing for an hour and a half, and they talked about this vaguely, is that this was something like a Rocky Mountain ham. It was a group that basically got together and worked with DMR stuff because they had code plugs there and various other things. So, and I'm trying to look them up online. I see nothing. So it definitely stands for something, but I'm not sure what.
With the
okay, very good. Thank you. Did I double somebody?
Q with a general comment.
Go ahead, please. Was it?
AE0BQ. Just wanted to throw in the missing piece here. I'm looking on Wikipedia, so refreshing my knowledge as I go. I read about it at one point and haven't revisited the subject, but I'm looking at the thing. So the DMR itself is based on open standards, and then the implementations have varying levels of compatibility. What the industry has standardized on now is a proprietary vocoder called the MB+2, AMBE, which refers to the something about the technology. Anyway, you'll hear the MB vocoder, and that's the proprietary bit that makes it not open. Okay, but that seems to be what all of the there are a group of following companies in 2005 signed a memorandum of understanding that they would all use this AMB vocoder to ensure interoperability. Now, I expect that was in 2005, and 2009 those same group of companies set up the DMR Association and to provide information about their standard. So it's somewhat open. It's not I wouldn't call it open source at all, but the standard itself is open, and a lot of the details other than this AMB vocoder, which is proprietary and closed, is open and available for those who are interested. The list of companies that's shown here is Tate Communications, Fildy Micro, Celex, Motorola, Hytera, Vertex Standard, Kenwood, and Icon. And obviously we have other brands that have glommed on since then, but those were the original participants in the 2005 Memorandum of Understanding. And so that's sort of where the so-called standard grew from. Not the standard, sorry, the standard was actually published by the European Telecommunications Standard Institute, the ETSI, and you can freely download the standard and read it to your heart's content, I suppose. But again, the proprietary piece that keeps this from being totally open is the vocoder, and I would speculate that, I'm going to pause for a reset here. Yeah, I would speculate that any true open source effort is going to find some sort of a plug-in to replace that vocoder, and therefore would necessarily be incompatible with the rest of DMR. However, if it's truly open, then manufacturers would be free to use that without incurring any licensing fees and so forth. So it remains to be seen where that goes. AE0BQ back to net.
USC.
This is N7GES with the NCARC Tech Net. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and those, what you just described as those encoders or recoders are in the radios themselves, not actually in these hotspots. By the way, at least my understanding is it's just passing the information that's already been digitized or been transmitted. Back to net.
LAO with a comment.
Stand by, LAO. We'll get to you here. I was going to comment that I would imagine that the hotspots would still have to have a vocoder if they were set up to pick up from another radio. I don't know that for a fact, but as you said, any transmission through the internet would not probably wouldn't require that. And I could be wrong again on that one. I don't know. Does that make sense, John, or am I off base somewhere?
The hotspot is usually two devices, either a mini computer and a UHF, usually radio, very low power, 10 milliwatt or so, and they're usually just little boards on top of each other, typically. At least that's what a lot of them are now that they're selling, and they're fairly inexpensive, and they support D-Star Fusion, P25, NXDN, DMR, and depending which servers you connect to on each one of those, at least on the DMR ones, they function differently and stuff, and you can do cross mode too. You can have a D-Star handheld and go through a hotspot onto a DMR network, or the other way. Back to net.
Okay, thank you, John. LAO, what you got?
Well, I understand what it does because I've worked in the computer field for most of my adult life. I understand networks and, but you're talking third-party software on top of a network. Why? This is analog. I get it and I don't. Why don't we make, radios and rather than trying to put a radio into a field, I don't know what else to say, that it doesn't belong. It's analog. And you're trying to put a radio into digital. Why not just make it work analog?
TYU.
Yeah, stand by just a moment, Joe. I was going to give a brief answer anyway to what you asked. I'm writing while I'm doing this. Sorry. Am I understanding correctly that you might be asking that you're asking why do we use a third piece of equipment, the hotspot, as opposed to a radio? Or are you asking why do we use the internet as opposed to just a radio? Or have I missed the point of your question?
No, you haven't confused it. And it's, part of me says, yeah, let's use the internet to reach out. But some people have kind of lost. I guess my question is, why not use the analog part and not say, well, we're just going to use the digital part? I guess I'm not expressing myself as much as well as I could, but it's what we're based in is analog.
And 0WIQ with a comment.
Okay, stand by, Carrie. I will get to you momentarily. We have somebody else also standing by here. Okay, so yes, why use internet and digital modes when radio is basically analog? Okay. The first part of what I will say is we've always, as amateurs, used different modes. We've done sideband, CW, which you might say is a digital mode, certainly. The various RTTY modes. So we've always experimented with everything we had available. And I think when radio went to a digital mode, it was no surprise that we would want to experiment with that as well. And because the internet has come along, we've hooked into that in various ways. One way, which is still sort of, you might say, analog, is the Echolink and IRLP. It's still carrying an analog voice through analog audio channels. It's just the stream is carried through the internet. Whereas these digital modes are grabbing packets of info, or are turning our voice into packets of info and sending them that way. So I think we amateurs have always been experimenting with everything we had available. As to why we don't rely just on radio rather than internet, again, I think it's experimental. I don't think it's a major part of what we do as far as amateur radio, but it's there and it's experimental, and there's probably other areas that we've gone a little far from radio to experiment into, but I can't really quote that at this point. Does that help a little bit, Luann? And then I will go ahead to other people's comments here.
Yes, indeed, Kevin. I like to push the envelope, and I've been on the other side, but I'm one that we need to stay grounded in what we know, but push and experiment. So yes, indeed, that totally answers my question.
Right, wonderful. All right, Joe, if you haven't forgotten what you were going to ask, I will finally send it to you.
Luann, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Maybe I can make this altogether simpler for you. Why does Chevrolet have a Corvette?
That is a lovely analogy. Thank you. I love being the devil's advocate, so thank you for that.
Ma'am, I do too. It's just that. I mean, if you could, Ford started out making the Model Ts. And by the way, I have a question for everybody out on the net, just for fun. Who designed the Model T?
WIQ. I think it was the original Ford person that designed the Model T, and it was the first car that was in mass production, too.
That is correct, but the designer is not it was not Henry Ford. Who do you think? I've mentioned this one other time. Does anybody know who designed the Model T? And by the way, they started with Model A, and they ended up with T.
Wills, Farkas, and the other guy whose name I can't remember. Zero in my mind.
Close. I don't want too quick, Joe. The Dodge boys actually worked for Ford at the time. They're the one that got it to work. Henry Ford could not get it to work. Anyway, back to net. I'm sorry. I do have a question about DMR, though, later on.
W2MIC with a late check-in and a comment for Luann.
Okay, wow, the queue is getting thick. Mark, good evening and welcome. I'm making notes. Okay. I've got you down for a question later, Joe, as well. WIQ, I think you had a comment back a ways there.
Oh, yes, and it was sort of for Luann, but I can only speak about D-Star radios. D-Star will do radio-to-radio communications also. So you could actually make a network of radios to make a whole thing work without internet. But on the other hand, the internet is involved with the hotspots so that you don't need to have a nearby repeater that'll do the repeating for you. Although there are D-Star repeaters around, too. So, I mean, Luann, like Joe said, amateur radio operators like to play around with different things. Now, the competition for D-Star is the other digital modes. And putting a digital stream on an RF signal is usually done in a couple of different ways. So I'll just leave it at that. Back to net.
Okay, some good points there, and important ones. And of course, DMR can also talk directly to other DMRs, even without a digipeater. I don't know that it has the networking capability. I believe I understand that D-Star repeaters can talk to other repeaters that can talk to other repeaters. I may have that wrong, but I believe that is correct. And so there is direct radio-to-radio compatibility there. And I don't know about fusion, but I'm sort of guessing that maybe it works that way as well, but I have no idea. So other people will have to fill me in on that one. Let's go on down the list here, and I will open up for more comments here in a minute, but I want to catch up everybody that's been on already. TYU, you had a question?
I do believe Mark was before me, though. Go ahead.
Well, actually, wasn't, but we'll go ahead and his was a comment for Luann. Go ahead, Mark.
W2MIC with a voice going away rapidly affected by smoke. Luann, a very minor clarification, if I may. So-called digital radio modes are not digital. They are analog, and I have a very simple little thought experiment. Think of sitting down to a piano and playing a C major chord, 3 notes. And we shall call those 3 notes the letter C. as in ABCD. Now play a D major chord, and we shall call those three notes the letter D. I think you get the idea. When we play on a piano, we have many strings and a wood box and all sorts of reverberations and all sorts of overtones. So let's clear away the overtones and use a synthesizer that outputs only a pure sine wave. So the middle C key plays middle C, which is 440 hertz sine wave. And every other key on the keyboard, on the synthesizer, plays a pure sine wave. And you can play as many notes as you want. Now, put your microphone next to the synthesizer and capture that analog audio and send it out to a device that will look for the presence or absence of 440 hertz and say, oh, I do or I do not see, observe the C note. Now you can send some number of analog sine wave notes simultaneously, and the receiver knows that it must see 440 hertz, not 445. And if it does see 440, it's got the C note, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. This is what allows you to get down below the noise floor with these so-called digital modes, which are really analog modes. And the huge advantage to the digital modes is we can get them down below the noise floor, whereas with regular FM, we cannot. Back to net.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mark. Love the music analogies, and that makes some interesting sense to me about this all, too. So, very good. All right, Joe, what you got?
LAO.
Okay. LAO, go ahead.
Well, the frequencies, okay, we won't go there. But that's not, it's the digital versus analog. And again, I'm being the devil's advocate. I know, and Phil's give me a bad time. It's how it's delivered. It's whether it's over the internet or over, well, wavelengths. That's what I'm saying. And it's not that we shouldn't use the internet or, while we have the internet and use that, but that's not the end-all catch-all, which some people want to say.
USC.
USC, Joe, I will come back to you. USC?
Yeah, thanks. This is W0 USC. A couple clarifications. One, at least with DMR, you can do simplex just like you could on FM, and it's really nice to talk with your buddies on HTs at the Hamfest or whatever. You can go off on a private channel. You can actually, and you can talk with multiple people on that simplex frequency or on a, so that's one thing. The other advantage I just want to mention is just a technology thing, is with DMR there's 2 time slots within the same channel. So there's actually 2 repeaters, or you can have 2 repeaters on the same channel, one in time slot 1 and one in 2. They can do different things, full duplex or whatever, but their technology, they've smashed down the signals or whatever, so they can transmit or have 2 different, basically repeaters or 2 different channels within that same frequency. Back to net.
LAV.
Okay, LAV.
Well, to offer a somewhat cynical answer to Luann's question, there's upper sideband and lower sideband. They can operate independent of each other on the same frequency, same as you related to two channels on FM. Yes, Mark is correct. Most of the digital modes are, in reality, at the bottom, analog. And my third and most cynical comment is technicians only have voice privileges on 28 megahertz, 10 meters. The digital modes on VHF, UHF, FM allow them to get out of the local repeater coverage area, which they could do if they upgraded to general. Enough said. Cynical. W0LEV.
Okay. Very good. All right, we do have a pending question here that we've keep getting sidetracked on. Joe, what you got?
Almost forgot. Let me let this drop for a minute. Okay. I have a question about DMR, okay? Radio ID. People who run Kenwoods and or ICOMs or D-Star stuff probably don't have to register this safe, but in order to get on the network, you have to have a radio ID for DMR. Is that radio ID tied to the radio, or is it tied to the call sign? In other words, what I'm saying is, if I buy two of these, can I use the same ID?
Yes, call sign, W0USC.
That was simple, thank you.
And just to confirm, when you buy radio, you input both your call sign and your ID that was issued to you. The call sign is for other people's convenience and your own convenience. The radio, the ID, tells other people. The call sign may not relay to other people. The call sign that you enter may not relay to other people. The radio ID definitely. Okay, start over. Blank that out. The call sign you enter into the radio may or may not relate to anybody else or display for anybody else. But the ID that you have been given will transmit to other radios, and if their radio has a list of call signs in it, it will show up as your call sign. If it does not, then it will show up as a radio ID. And that's one other point I will make, is that just because you're transmitting a radio ID does not mean that you have identified your station legally, because you're transmitting a number, an arbitrary number, which other people associate with your call, but not that everybody is automatically can read and associate with your call. So it is important to identify in voice, because I don't believe anything about your call officially is related in that digital communication. So when you buy a new radio, enter the ID you were given and your call sign as well, and don't forget the ID every 10 minutes. Okay. Good question. Some good answers from folks. Good questions and good answers from folks. Do we have other questions or comments, please? This is N7GES, and this is the TechNet.
DEG, comment and check in.
DEG, go ahead, and good evening.
Kevin. Now, I can't remember the actual name of the digital mode, but the Yazoo has that digital mode in it, C4FM, that's what it is. And when you program your radio, you put in your call sign. When you have your Yazoo radio in C4FM and you transmit to talk to someone else, your call sign will pop up on their screen. Same thing with them, their call sign will pop up on your screen. You do not have to have it stored. The reason I know this is because I played with mine a little bit, and that's how I, could tell, oh yeah, okay, that's who that is, because the screen does that. I know of that mode does it. I don't know of any others.
Okay, so yeah, I know that DMR will do it if they have the database of known radio users with IDs in their radios. Do you know if D-Star has to load a database of user call signs in order to do that or not?
I wanted to start out with my Yazoo, whatever it was. I can't remember, because I don't know anything about the DMR stuff. I was just saying in that particular mode, it does give the call sign out. So I have been told, because of that, in that mode, you do not have to ID as often. But it's still a courtesy.
Who are you?
TYU?
No. I'm afraid that's not wrong, Mike. You have to really follow the standard if you're on DMR, Fusion, whatever. That all still exists. You have to ID every 10 minutes. I heard that today on this little thing. Oh, by the way, I was wrong about the PAPA. It's actually PAPA. Sys.com. It's great. They're out of LA, or they're out of San Francisco, and they've got everything on DMR.
N0WIQ again.
WIQ, go.
I can only speak for D-Star because I've done a little reading on it, but the way they create a digital stream is they use an FM channel and use two tones, one for a 1 and one for a 0, and that's how they send out the digital stream. And of course the protocol is important because the protocol determines what is put together with that digital stream. So I just lay that out. I don't know how the other systems modulate the digital stream, but D-Star uses the old packet standard, one tone for 0, one tone for a 1, and that's switched back and forth to create the digital stream. So, I mean, hey, such is life.
Okay. Right. I would like to know more about whether Fusion really does transmit a valid decodable call sign that is not linked to a database one has to receive or that can be changed. So that is something that I would think we need a little more certainty and clarification on. And so, until we know that for sure, just remember, just because your radio displays a call sign of somebody transmitting, it may not be that they're actually transmitting their call sign. They may be transmitting a piece of data that somebody else in their compilation of data has related as their call sign. So just be aware of that. And if you find out that mode does indeed transmit a valid call sign, then you can make decisions. However, as Mike said, as a courtesy, IDing in voice is always a good idea on a digital mode, and and that way you won't confuse modes and fail to ID if it's necessary. That would be just at least my own advice I would offer. So, good stuff. Other questions or comments, please? Did we have anybody new that I missed? Okay, any other comments or questions?
WIQ again.
WIQ?
Again, I can only speak about D-Star, but I would expect most of the digital modes do the same thing. They send out a text stream that can contain both call sign and other text. So, I mean, when you're digitizing things, you can actually put a fair amount of different stuff in it, but D-Star actually sends out the call sign and other text, and you can define the text that you want sent, by the way. So, I mean, hey, such is the way it is, at least on D-Star, is when you make the digital stream and you can describe the protocol so you can send messages, English messages at that. Hey, that's the way things work, so back to net.
Okay, thank you, Kerry. Other questions or comments, please?
W0 USC.
USC, go ahead.
So remember, all these digital modes also transfer data, and most commonly use GPS. I know on the DMR stuff, my locations show up on APRS.FI, and I didn't even know that. They just automatically show up there. And then you can, transmit or use other, do other type of data, transmission or receiving. I don't know who's using or utilizing any of that right now, except for location. W0 USC, back to net.
Well, that's a good point, too. And, referring back to Luann's comment, we've been sending analog data via a sort of digital mode, you might say, because of, if you consider CW and RTTY, those are certainly, RTTY certainly is sending out bits in the form of marks and spaces to relay digital information. So the digital radios are certainly doing the same thing that way, and as we said, can transmit to from radio to radio. So that's it's some good comparisons there, and I don't do much digital myself, so I'm not a fan or not a fan, but just looking at the differences and comparisons, I think we can fairly say that both of them are definitely radio oriented. So let's get back. We've sidetracked just a little bit from hotspots. Any other question on the hotspots specifically? Right. Answered this very well, I guess. Any other questions about digital modes that we can perhaps try to answer? All right, this is N7GES, and this is the TechNet. Let's open it up to any general radio questions that anybody might have. Right. As we're approaching the beginning of a month, let's see, I think next Monday the 1st of the month? I was thinking it was, and now I'm not sure. So let me just look real quick here. Yes, we are. So let's do an open form next week. Think of questions you've got. Think of information you'd like to find out about, or things you might like to pick somebody's brain about regarding any area of amateur radio. And we'll open up for general comments next week. And then we'll go back into topics after that point. Again, I will ask that if you have comments about the net, questions that you would like the net to answer, or questions about the net's operation, please email elmers@ncarc.net. That's Elmer like the person's name who we tend to use as a reference for people who teach about amateur radio and work with people one-on-one. elmers@ncarc.net. NCARC as in Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. Not true phonetics, but phonetics that will work anyway. Thank you for being dealing with that as it's offered. Thanks to everybody who participated and who asked good questions and gave good information back tonight. I look forward to the various questions that might come next week, and hopefully will come. And I appreciate everybody's willingness to listen, be patient, and wait their turn, as we've had to do a lot tonight with all the different comments and questions that were coming in. Thank you again, and I will now close the net and return the system to normal operations. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week. This is N7GES Clear.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.